Hello, friends. I want to talk about a band that you may not have heard of, which is what I really like to do. I like to sort of hopefully bring things to folks' attention if possible. I know just from reading comments that people that have somehow stumbled upon this podcast are already like way ahead of me on most things. So a lot of things when I think I'm introducing you to something, I'm probably not, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to try. There's a band that I really have loved for a very long time. I saw them live and was blown away by the live show. But the band is called 16 Horsepower. Familiar with them? You should be. Quite interesting. There is an aspect of music when people ask me sometimes, what kind of music do you like? That's a really hard question to answer honestly and properly. I think the best answer to that is I like music that's honest. I tend to not like music that sounds like somebody's trying to make me think they're something that they're not. Unless that is an overt thing that I understand. I know that I know that Gene Simmons in Kiss is not really a demon, but it's okay because he knows that I know that he's not a demon. But in other cases, there might be bands who are trying to convince me that they're like down with the street and the vibe of everything, but you can kind of hear it in their in their presence, in their essence, that they're not really what they're claiming to be. The reason I'm talking about this is that I believe that David Eugene Edwards, the key personality behind 16 Horsepower, and his later bands, which I will mention in another podcast. He's got another band called Woven Hand he's actually been in for longer than he was in 16 Horsepower. But 16 Horsepower was where I discovered him. And it is a hard to describe, folky, old style, very dark roots music kind of Americana band that had instrumentation with things like banjos and a concertina and slide guitar and all of that kind of swampy southern but the real thing. I sense sincerity from this guy's work. One album, I mean, the first album that they did was called Sackcloth and Ashes, which is just a fantastic album. And then Low Estate is another fantastic album. Very dark. The imagery in there sometimes goes into religious kind of gothic, almost gothic religion. The kind of music about religion that accentuates the kind of scariness of religion, the idea of redemption and sin and suffering and penance and all these things that I kind of grew up with. I grew up in the South, and I kind of know where that sort of Southern Gothic religious fear, that the thing that people used to say, a fear of God, which I always kind of troubled me. Why should I have to fear that? But some people felt like you get the sense when I was a kid, I got the sense growing up around there that people sort of needed that. They needed the fear. They wanted it, and they kind of were almost comforted by the idea that there was a vengeful being out there that was going to punish them, and that you had to serve time, had to serve and do the penance and the pain and that aspect of religion. Those are things, although they may not be in his reality, those are things that tend to come through in the music. He has said, David Eugene Edwards has said in interviews that he is in fact Christian, so his music comes from his experience of that, his expression of it, and which I think is incredible that he is doing that. He's sort of revealing this stuff to us, his feelings. his fear and all that, and fears and ideas about redemption and sin and suffering and all these things. And he says that the Christian community does not really like his music. He said that the Christians don't really like my music, and then everyone else doesn't either because it sounds Christian to them. But I don't think that's the primary element of the music. To me, it's got that storyteller feel to it. It's like Americana folk music that's telling stories about those old feelings, those old times. There's another album called Olden, which I think is a great title for a 16 horsepower album. But the other thing that he sings about is the South. It's got a vibe of this Southern sense of like Southern Gothic. You imagine the kind of Carson McCullers, Flannery O'Connor, William Faulkner-ish kind of vibe of his experience of the South. And I think one of my favorites of his is called Secret South. This is an album that I just love. I really like all of their albums. But Secret South, this one's got some really incredible songs on it. There's a list of them right there, with some interesting letter spacing. But this album is so dark and fascinating. Like all of his albums, there's no real humor to it. He strikes me as someone that would probably be fascinating to talk to, but would probably take you on a bit of a downer. Maybe. I mean, he probably is not going to talk about his favorite Star Trek episode or anything like that. He's got a presence and a dynamic to him that is intense. When I saw them live, I saw him play live, and I was very close to the front of the stage, and there is a intense edginess that comes off of him, and I believe it. I mean, I believe that he is who he is in his music. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe when he goes off stage, he becomes a completely different person, but I don't believe that. I think he is who he appears to be. And that's what I think has made him so consistent all through the career with 16 horsepower and Woven Hand. I highly recommend this guy and 16 horsepower and Woven Hand. Woven Hand and 16 horsepower, very similar bands, very similar music. You may not be able to discern the line between the two. David Eugene Edwards is the driving force in all of these, in 16 horsepower and Woven Hand, and it's his presence that comes across in the music. His voice is haunting. The music is haunting. He's got the kind of voice that goes into your mind. It's one of those voices that sounds like a wail of pain sometimes, or a cry, or a shout from the darkness, almost like he's trying to describe his feelings of fear and the sadness and the depth of that Southern Gothic presence that he portrays in the music. I highly recommend 16 horsepower and Woven Hand. The David Eugene Edwards projects, and I hope you get them the way I do. I mean, I am not a religious person, but I'm fine with people who are, and I don't reject music if it's made by a person who is religious. I listen to it, and if I feel like they're trying to express something to me about that is interesting, honest, and conveys their honest feelings about it. It's not just, come on, clap your hands for the Lord. It's not that kind of, religious music. it's not praise music. I'm not definitely not gonna not going there with this. But if it's got that edge to it, I kind of understand why some Christian people might not like it, because it kind of uncovers the sort of darker aspects of religion. And in that way, I think it becomes interesting to anyone. I mean, it's hard to get into the devotional music, the praise music of religious people if you are not of that religion, and to get into it in the way that they do, where they're like, yes, this is my music. But it is interesting if there is music that has a religious aspect to it that conveys another aspect of that you may not know about, or you may not understand the feelings of. But anyway, maybe I'm going on too much about that. I still, like I said before, I feel like the religious parts of David Eugene Edwards' 16 horsepower Woven Hand is not, to me, the primary element of it. To me, it's more like Americana folk music, music about the South, music about that feeling of the darkness of the South, the hidden secrets of the South, and the swampy backwoods kind of feeling of that type of music. Some people might think of the movie Deliverance and that, the kid on the porch playing dueling banjos with Ronnie Cox, and it's not that. But there is an aspect of it where when I saw 16 horsepower play live, there was a genuine feeling of like, wow, these guys are for real. This is the real deal. And in that way, it was kind of intimidating in a way, in the way that some rock bands could be, that I remember in the past, where they would come out and you would be like, whoa, these guys are really rock stars. They're like really rock people, and they live the life. They're not just coming out here and playing, and then they get off stage and they completely change their attitude or their personality. They stay in character. They're not playing a character, they live it. That's what I feel about 16 horsepower. It's great dark Americana, and I just love it. Really love it. And maybe that's all I'm going to say about it for now. Maybe I'll go back and talk about Woven Hand in another episode, but check them out. Look online, see if there's some of those YouTube videos where you can take a taste of some music that you might like or might not like. Give it a shot, and that's all I'm going to say about that for now. I hope you're doing good, and I hope you don't feel too scared or sinful. Hope you don't need redemption. But I'll talk to you again real soon.